Promote Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Culture Safety by Hayley Daniels. It is important to be respectful of Indigenous laws and kinship, as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders usually live in a community with different laws, life expectations and customs to non-Indigenous Australians. The Indigenous will normally take into account of their elders when setting goals and making decisions. Indigenous people will pass on their culture and history from one generation to the next by performances, rituals and stories to keep their history alive and to teach the new generation. Aboriginals are the oldest surviving culture in the world. They have lived for approximately 60,000 years. When the British arrived to Australia, they did not take into account diversity. Different cultures tried to force their way of living on the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. In 1770, the British would not recognise the rights Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders had for the land and announced Australia the land that belonged to nobody. This caused major issues with the Indigenous people, as they were the originals of Australia. The land is a fundamental to the well-being and belief of the Indigenous people and is their core and spirit to their country. In 1910 to 1970, children were forcibly taken from the Indigenous people. This was to try and purposely destroy the history and the way of living for the new generations. Parents did not know where their children were taken to, and this became the stolen generation. The first National Sorry Day was held May the 26th, 1998. This was to remember and acknowledge that the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children were taken from their families. I'm Sorry Day is an annual event of speeches and performance held throughout the country. Some important facts of Indigenous people are 670,000 people live in Australia and 13% of Australians are Indigenous people. The life expectancy is 10 to 15 years less than non-Indigenous Australians, and 3% of Aboriginals complete university. When referring to Indigenous people, it is important to use the correct terminology. Indigenous Australian people, Aboriginal people, Torres Strait Islander people, and Aboriginal nations. It is important to be aware of our own and other people's culture in the work practice. This way, we have more of an understanding and can respect and help support our clients making good decisions without placing any judgment. Some effective ways of communication with Aboriginal Torres Strait Islanders is showing active listening skills, empathy, personal space, and limit eye contact with them directly. We need to engage with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, with it being with colleagues or interpreters, referring them to services that may be more suitable for them. Some strategies we can use when consulting Indigenous communities is employing Indigenous people for reception so that people can immediately be aware of culture diversity. We can also hire Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders to provide services, hang paintings, arts around the building to make Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders feel more welcome. Being cultural aware, we need to promote and use resources such as appropriate sign language, body language, interpreters, and letting other families members feel welcome and be part of the counselling experience. We need to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders' way of communication and events and generally show interest. Ways we can assure we are providing the best care to our clients is to make sure all staff is cultural competent. All staff to have the correct training to ensure cultural competence and an exclusive workplace. Increase knowledge, capabilities and skills of employers. Ensure and enforce cultural safety. Compliance with the Code of Ethics and Practice, and to ensure all counselling sessions are correctly documented to ensure the client and counsellor safety. A culturally safe work practice means that we recognise and respect different cultures. We support social and emotional safety, provide physical and spiritual safety, not challenge anyone based on cultural differences, and support dignity and listen to others. As a counsellor, we need to relate to the client as an individual and to not generalise them by their culture, as we need to understand that not all people will follow their culture and history. We must not place any judgment or discriminate the client.